What's going on, everyone? It's Bowles, and welcome back to another episode of the Weekend Report. So, with me tonight, I've got two-time AFL Fantasy champion Selby, Lee-Steere, coach of Moreira's Magic. Selby, how you doing?
Good, Bowles, mate. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. We got just go through all the games this week. Round 11 was a bit of a troublesome round for many people, with multiple players being out on Thursday night, including the Rucks. We get stuck in everything. So if you are watching live, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. But we'll get stuck in. So I will just go quickly through how I went in fantasy this week. And I got a 2046. I moved down about 2,000 spots to 8,794. So not great. Keep tumbling down. So not too great. So how did you end up going in Supercoach?
Supercoach, I think I got 2,400, which was, I think, worse than par. I missed out on Tom Stewart, who went huge, and had Petrarca, who obviously underperformed, had 10 touches. I can't believe he lowest ever disposals in a game, considering he had that first couple of seasons off an ACL playing as a forward, and he was pretty average, and people questioned if he was ever going to be any good, and he still had more possessions than he had the other day, and now he's a Norm Smith. So I think I'm enjoying it, but it's nowhere near as good the platform as fantasy. It doesn't have any live ranks or anything, so I don't know how I'm sitting, but that will update it probably overnight.
Yeah. Because I saw you tweet about Petrarca, about him only getting his 10 touches, and I commented on it, and I said, I wonder if he was sick, because it seemed like, and then it came out this morning that Goody said that Petrarca apparently was ill in the morning, and then he was crooked for the game. So that sort of solves why he was so poor. But
yeah.
40 though.
Just frustrating he played, isn't it?
Yeah.
In that case, because we've seen it with Butters when he was sick, he spat out a 40. DeGoey one day when he was sick, he had a 40. And again, it just shows how good Crisp is, who was sick that week and then came and played and still got a 90 odd, I think it was. And how we all say how consistent he is, but it's even more impressive now, that performance of Crisp, because you always want your player named, and Bailey Smith, everyone wanted him named, but sometimes it's best when they're not named, because they're not going to go a 40. They're not going to drop in cash. You can maybe get that score with the rookie bench option and at least save the cash loss, which we're going to get with Petrarca, which is a shame.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, unfortunately, and luckily he was my VC, but I know that there are a lot of people that went him captain. So that is just, you don't deserve that. But yeah, Crispy just showed how consistent he was. He got 100 when he was sick, and he didn't even play his midfield role. So, but yeah, so quickly, my +3, I'd probably give it to Josh Dunkley as captain with the 139. Lockie Neal was obviously big as well. And then I think the -3 would go to actually, no, not Petrarca. I'll give it to Isaac Heaney. He's been really poor since I've brought him in. He's given me a 60, 2 70s, and a 50 now in the 4 weeks I've owned him. So, yeah, not too great from me. If you had a +3, -3 off the top of your head, Selby, what would you reckon you'd give in your Supercoach side?
For -3 Petrarca, and I've got Heaney as well. Your team sounds very similar to mine. Heaney, I have had him from the start though, so he's net positive still, but he's turned from a marking target inside 50 where he'd get a few marks. So he's just playing a classic small forward role now, and he's a bit of a worry. He's not flying for marks. He's got it in between. He's not getting possessions, not tackling. So he was bad. And who was good for me? I got in Wits this week for Cruz, who in Supercoach land hit out to advantage is worth a bit, and he scored a 120. So it was either that or playing Hayes. So that trade was net positive. But again, as I said, I thought Darcy was going to do poor, and he was the obvious choice. If he didn't have the tough matchup, and hindsight, he would have been the better option.
Yeah. I was turned off by Darcy, just purely the fact of his body. My mate traded him in last year. He got injured the first game he had him, and he seems like he's only a few meters away from getting a knock or something and getting so that's the only thing that scares me away. But then again, I guess you'd sort of any player can get injured at any point. But But yeah, no, as a Freo man, you'd be very, very happy with the result yesterday. That's for sure.
Yeah, crazy. And he took it up to Gorney. Is good. And I think he could be the number 2 ruck if it's not going to be Tim English, who when always fullback saying he's going to be in forward. So what did you do with your ruck department then? You had Bruce?
Yeah, so I had, well, funny enough, I had Bruce, Whitfield, Taranto, and Bailey Smith. So I was in the hole from the start. So I ended up holding all 4 because I thought I just got to sort of cop the week and I'll move on and continue to upgrade my team. I ended up holding Bruce, played Hayes, obviously got a 30. I thought he was good for a 60 plus in wet weather conditions, a lot of hit outs, but he certainly didn't do well. I would have, if I traded Wits, I would have gone, if I traded Bruce, I would have gone Wits over Darcy and O'Brien because it would have been perfect for the buys. And then I would have maybe moved him on, but sort of Wits was a bit disappointing in fantasy. Only the 84, I think it was off the top of my head. So
yeah, I think he had like five touches at half time, which I think he finished with 17 or 18. So he might have had 13 touches second half, and he did in the second half. I thought he'd do the first whole game. It was a tough one, that predicament teams had with playing Hayes in the wet. Lots of hit out opportunities, but he wasn't going to get much of the ball. Do you plug and play him and upgrade elsewhere, or do you upgrade him up to a premium ruck? And there was just so many risks with all the rucks, being a Darcy with a tough matchup, English coming up, first game in 6 weeks, lost kilos, went to hospital. Wits, who had a soft matchup, and that's the way I would have gone, and that's where I went in Supercoach. I probably would have done it in fantasy too, and he did underperform, but he's got a good buy. He's going to help throughout that and still make money, and then from there you can then trade him to an English, who I thought was potentially going to drop, but he didn't, or a Darcy. But hindsight is that he should have been traded, Bruce, because Hayes underperformed, and it would have been good if you got an English, or a Riley O'Brien. But it would have been a brave man to jump on English or Riley O'Brien.
I saw Jeppa jumped on Rob this week, so he profited big time from that. But then I think he said he benched Nick Martin for De Koning or something like that, so it cost him 30 or so points there. So yeah, it was a tricky one with the rucks. I ended up keeping Bruce because I thought if I go Wits to Bruce, it's sort of, I see them sort of pretty similar. Obviously, Wits is the safer guy where you know he's playing every week, whereas you just don't know what's happening with Bruce and those Giants rucks. So I end up holding, but yeah, in hindsight, I needed to trade. Poor week for me anyway. But yeah, we'll get stuck into these games and just a couple of players.
What was the upgrade? Just quickly, what was the upgrade? Who did you put Martin up to?
Yep, so I went Martin to Titch. So that sort of, I was pretty happy with him. He played full-time mid-roll, so hopefully that continues. I guess we'll just have to wait and see moving forward. But yeah, so I ended up losing a point. Who would have thought you'd lose a point going Nick Martin to Titch? That's sort of quite funny.
Yeah. But it's always the way. As soon as you trade out someone, and the whole community traded out Tom Mitchell, Nick Martin, he was always going to put up a big one. It happens every year. Yeah. But I dare say, if everyone held, he would have scored, which is a Murphy's Law of fantasy.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll get stuck into the Friday night game. So the Sydney-Richmond game. So players of note from here. So Luke Parker performed really well with a 108. He's looking everything like a top 6 forward at the moment. Callum Mills playing with getting in the back line, getting his 107 as that quarterback role. Who else we got here? Jaden Short and 84, probably a bit underwhelming for a lot of people. With hang on. Oh, sorry, I just lost my thing on the phone for a sec. But yeah, so anyway, so you're Jaden Short and 84, probably a little bit underwhelming. Dusty Martin got an 81. If you're looking at him potentially as an option. Jake Lloyd with an 81. If you had him, you probably wanted a bit more with Blakey being out. What else we got here? Paddy McCartan got a 50, so I think a few people were looking at him to play him on field. on for covering for like a guy like a Whitfield. So obviously 50 probably wasn't enough. So you probably move Whitfield on, or you tried playing someone else like a DeConing, which is the route I went down. And then Heaney was really poor as well with a 51. I think we'll just wait till Selby's all ready to go. I think he's just doing a couple of things at the house. But yeah, with Heaney, it's a tough one. When you look at the team, the amount of forwards that they've got, you just would have thought he would have been playing a lot more midfield than what he has been. But it's just really disappointing when you're just sitting forward and not scoring well enough. So for me, I'm potentially looking at moving him on this week as it works better for my buys. But yeah, really poor from him. Yeah, we got Selby back.
Yeah, no, I've been on. Yep.
Oh, you have been on. Okay. Oh, so I wasn't sure if you're on or not. But so with Heaney, would you agree that he is a potential move on target, especially if it works better for your buys?
Yeah, I think so. That round 13 bye where the forward line, a lot of teams have Dunkley, Parker, potentially Trelaw, if you've got a Roses down there, and hope to get a Bontempelli and a Bailey Smith and those Bulldogs guys, they're all on that one bye. So if you're looking short in that bye, out of all them, the one who's not going to be a top six is Isaac Heaney in this forward role, particularly if he played that forward role where he was deep in a target and taking marks or pushing up the ground high half forward, then maybe, but he's kind of playing a bit of an in-between role, which isn't attractive. So I'd be open to trading him out.
Yeah, when you look at their team and they've got Hayward and Gordon's a wing forward, and then you've got McDonald and Buddy, and they play like a Reed or a Marty or a McLean there, and they've got all these forward, Papley as well, but then Papley's getting more C-Res than Heaney, which I still don't quite understand myself, but I don't know. These coaches sort of sometimes do moves that we don't agree with, but there you go. I'll probably be looking at moving him on anyway. He's just not like Sitwell. I've traded him into my team in round 8, and I've gotten the 60, the 270s, and then the 50 from him. So I missed out on all his hundreds. So because when I looked at it, you thought one score under 95 for the year, you thought, oh, he'd be a great target, but yeah, when with that sort of, he's just not quite good enough, I don't think. So have to look to move him on, I think, at some point.
Yeah, and I think Jeppa got him in the same time. So good coaches were doing the same thing. It was just the CBAs were dry, and I think he was overperforming based on his role. Like he was taking marks, he was kicking goals late, and hindsight's always great. But I think at the moment, the hope was that Papley would come back. Buddy's back. He's going to be playing midfield. That's not happening. So yeah, I'd be certainly happy trading him this week, even if he's playing, given the fact that if that round 13 buy you're short on, then it's a good option to get the extra number.
Yeah, I when I brought him in, it was between him and Parker, and I went Heaney. So that's obviously one decision that's probably cost me a decent chunk of points. So yeah, not too great. With Brisbane and GWS, so Lockie Neal went bang again. He's 143. So he, besides those, the 3 games where he got injured, tagged by O'Connor, tagged by Swallow in the bad conditions, and then tagged by Hawthorn, he's gone 113 plus in every game. So he's looking everything of a top sort of 3 or 4 midfielder at the moment. Josh Kelly, your mate Selby's gone now, 4 scores his last 5 over 120. So is he a target that you would be looking at after his bye in this round?
I think so. Like I was bullish on. I think I declared him to be the highest scoring player in fantasy this year, and then he came out and averaged 95 or whatever it was the first 6 weeks. I looked a bit silly, but now the last 5 he's been great. Obviously, Torano's been out. Like the big thing would be he needs 60+% CBAs. He's had that the last 2 weeks with a new coach. So is that the new coach, or is it because there's no Torano? So part of me wants to watch him with Torano first and just see if that goes back to 45, 50% like it was, where I think he's capped at 110. But if he can stay at 65 plus, he can be a 115 player and be a top couple, in which case definitely he's a target. But because he hasn't had a bad one yet, he's still pretty fully priced. I think he's priced around the 110 mark. So you're not getting a bargain, but I think you are getting someone who could be a top couple.
Yeah, and if you look at the CBAs from GWS, you had Flynn was 26, then you had Perryman at 27, Kelly with 25, Canelio 22, Tom Green 17, Tanner Brunt 11, Sproul 9, Toby Green 3. When I look at it, I think maybe Taranto takes over the Perryman amount of CBAs and gets a decent chunk, and then maybe Tanner Brunt's not in the team when those guys come back, and maybe Perryman gets 10 to 15. So I'm quite bullish on Josh Kelly. I think that this role looks here to start. I think Mark McVeigh knows what he's doing. Leon Cameron certainly didn't, putting Cornelio Whitfield forward and putting people in different positions. So I think Kelly will be good here. I've currently got him he'd be in my top 8 midfielders from here on in. Stephen Cornelio, so he's got another 108. So that's back-to-back good games. I'd be holding on to him if you guys have got him. Where was the other one? I was going to talk about this game. So Dane Zorko, Selby, with a 49. What do you think of him and his potential moving forward? Because that's a couple of stinkers now lately. I think he got the 50 against Gold Coast in poor weather, and then he got the 49 today. Do you still see him as a top 6 defender, or do you think there's a few other defenders that would probably be above him?
Yeah, I don't think he's top 6 now when you think Doherty, Short, Crisp, Stewart now, Sinclair, Hewitt. There's plenty of guys who are more consistent. You know what you're going to get. I think his upside, like there'll be a game where Zorko's going to get a 140, 130. But for consistency, he's probably not going to be. Those who jumped on, I think he's worth persisting with. Like I wouldn't trade him while I've still got rookies on the field, and I think they've got the good buy too, being the last week of the buy. So I'd be holding him until the end still, and I think he'll bounce back. He's a pretty proud footballer. I don't think he knows himself. He's not getting much of the ball. I think he's going to bounce back.
Yeah, well, I was looking at him and Rich as a round 14 buy player to bring in because I'm quite light on the round 14, but both those guys stunk it up, so I can't bring myself to be getting any of those guys. With Geelong and Adelaide, so Tom Stewart. So I didn't think he had a ceiling of 130 plus, and then he got the 150 again a few rounds ago, and I thought I don't know if he's going to do that again. But he went even better and got a 169 against my Crows. He was probably the reason that they ended up not holding on, but they stopped the Crows' momentum early in the third quarter. He was huge. I was assuming he'd be in your top 6 at the moment.
Yeah, I think so, but he's not high up there. I think if he had it all his way like he did against Adelaide, he definitely would be. It's just that I think people now know, or they should know, coaches, that he's the most damaging intercept defender in the game. They set up perfect for him. Attention will start coming. He's not going to get it all his way like he did. Like he was playing on Fogarty at times, so Fogarty's not going to do much defensive pressure on the weekend. I think he's going to be... There's going to be teams who are going to plan around limiting Stewart's impact. So I think he's still going to be, like he has been the last 4 years, a 95 to 100 guy, and he might even be a 105 guy. So that's enough to get him around that blanket of the D4 to D8. You can throw a fair few in there. But no, he played such a good game on the weekend.
Yeah, he's an incredible footballer. He's very, very good. Riley O'Brien was 159. Obviously, he went huge, responding to his demotion. I don't know if I'd be bringing him in, but he certainly looked a lot better than what he has to start the season. Blitzarves, if we knew he was a solo ruck, I think would be an option. But I just think with the risk of potentially Stanley coming in at any point, I don't think I'd be bringing him in. Guthrie, the 126, he was underpriced. If you're a lot on that round 13 buy, he's potentially a guy that you could look at bringing in. Rory Laird, so he's amazing. Just gets it done every week. Would he be one of your top targets, Selby, if you're looking for a big midfielder in the coming rounds?
Yeah, he's a gun, and I think he gave away... I've got him as super coach. He gave away 5 or so free kicks. I don't have the numbers. I just watched it to the eye. He seemed to be holding the ball a couple of times. So that could have been even bigger. He's pretty expensive. That's the only thing. He's pretty fully priced. So in terms of targets,
he gave away 4 free kicks.
Yeah. So I think he's priced probably over. I haven't got the numbers in front of me. He's priced over one.
He's currently priced at 919k, 918. Sorry, his break even is 120, so he's going to stay about the same price. So I'm not sure exactly what that will be priced at, but
yeah, I've got him as a top 8 mid. It's just whether you're better off getting someone like a Guthrie priced at 96, 97 who might do 105, or a Laird price at 112 who might do a 117. It's the trade off. So he's definitely a star, and he's so consistent. He tackles. He's in around, so he's a good option and a captain option too.
Yeah, he's the guy I'm looking at bringing in this week with his run. Well, for the rest of the year, really, his run's amazing. But his next 6 games, he's got West Coast, Adelaide Oval. Then he's got the bye. Then he's got Gold Coast, North Melbourne, Hawthorn, and Collingwood. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes an average 115 over that stretch, because he just gets it done every week, and he's the main guy. Now, one player I want to talk about, so Ben Keys. So he's now getting quite cheap. He's now down priced. I'm just getting his price up here. So he's now 853 with a break in 135. He's obviously going to go down 830. Would he be an underpriced guy that you would you go him over Laird?
Yeah, I think Laird's going to outperform him from now to the end of the year. But in terms of what their price, because Keys has had about 5 in a row where I don't even think he's hit 100. So he's cheap, and he's shown in the past he can put up 110 scores. So if you do like that run, like you mentioned, Adelaide have a nice run, then he's probably a more attractive on the price point and easier to get up to at this time of year.
Yeah. And yeah, with Adelaide's run. And the thing with Keys is the thing that he hasn't been doing is he's been getting his 26, 27, 28 touches, but he's only been getting a couple of tackles, couple of marks. So I think with the easier run coming, I think with the more he'll probably have a little bit more open space. I think extra marks and maybe an extra tackle or 2 might come. Jordan Dawson. So this is man crush central for him. I love Dawson. He just gets it done no matter where he plays. I don't know why we keep as a Crows fan, why we keep moving him forward, then a wing, then in defence, then keep moving everywhere. But what do you think of him moving forward? Is he who would you rather have, Dawson or Stewart?
Good question. Dawson, you're right. Like the risk on Dawson is that he does get thrown around forward, wing, back. He's so damaging by foot that you can see times teams might be cautious of him and not let him get the ball. And then he doesn't win his own footy. Like he relies, which is good for fantasy when he gets a lot of marks, but he relies on people giving him the ball to get his kicks. So
yeah,
in defence, that's why I like my defenders playing in the midfield. Like a George Hewitt, he's going to be in there, win his own ball, get the tackles. Like I can see Dawson having a poor one, but I can also see him have a big one. But they're Stewart and him and Hewitt. They're all Sicily. They're all in that blanket from D4. After you've got Doherty, Short, and Crisp, then you can throw a blanket over a fair few of them. Sinclair. There's a lot, and Sinclair's stocks went up again after today's performance.
Yeah, he went massive. Mitch Duncan, I sort of see him as he scores like a rookie after quarter time every week. It's ridiculous. He gets up 30, 40 points in the first quarter, and then he sort of goes missing. So I wouldn't be looking at him really as an option anymore, considering he was going to be a top sort of couple of forward everyone had him predicted of the year. Sam De Koning, if anyone had him, 83, that was obviously a very, very good score. And then you had a guy like Saligo got his 60 against Geelong, so he'll make obviously money. And hopefully no one jumped on Miller. He only got the 30. We'll move to Melbourne and Fremantle. So
yeah, I've probably got one more game in me because I meant to run at six Perth time. But let's knock off.
That's all good. No worries. Is there a particular game you wanted to go over, or?
Yeah, let's do. I'll watch the Dockers game, so let's do that one.
Okay, yeah, beautiful. So if you want to lead this one, then, and you can go through which players impressed you in this game.
Well, the main one's Darcy, because with Grundy down, we're hunting for the R2, particularly those who held Bruce or traded Bruce to Jamison and playing Hayes. We're trying to work out who we're going to get as R2. And for Darcy to do what he did against Max Gawn, because the knock on him is he's played Max this week and McInerney next week. And I think, they're the 2 most restrictive ruckmen in the comp. So I would have been hesitant to pick Darcy this week. But the fact he's showing that, then you could probably even watch him again this week against McInerney and get him after his bye. He's got the late bye, or get him in this week if you don't want to trust. If you did do that Jamison move from Bruce and you're running with a Hayes, if you don't trust that. The beauty now we're running into the bye period that the R2 doesn't matter as much because it's only your best 18. So it's not like you're rolling out a Hayes versus someone else's good R2. You're running out your whatever you've got, 20 players against someone else, and it's your best 18. So the R2 might not count anyway. So you can afford to wait till after the bye for Darcy and after that other tough matchup. But he's the one who caught the eye in a good way. And then obviously the bad way was Petrarca, who, as you said, was sick. And any non-owners, he's going to be a prime target after his bye. He's got the late bye as well. And even if you are light on the round 13, lots of teams are, you might even, don't worry about the high break even, might want to jump on him early and get 2 games out of him before his last bye, when it's good to have players on that last bye.
Yep. One player I want to talk to you about as well is Andrew Brayshaw. What are your thoughts on him? Do you see him being a top 4 midfielder? He's obviously had a couple of 90s in his last couple of games, but he's got Brisbane, who've been giving up points lately, and he's got Hawthorn after that. So do you still see him as a guy you could potentially target, or would you wait for him to fall down a little bit more in price?
He's starting to fall down to a cheap price now. Obviously got off to a fly and start the season. I think he is definitely going to be, he's got a good fancy game where he could be a top 2 or 3 players. I still have him. I've got Mills and probably him, number 2 still for fantasy midfielders. So if he starts getting down to a price, that figure around the 112 mark, when I think he can do 115 plus, I'd be pouncing. And again, post his bye, he should be right for the picking.
Yeah, 100%. I think he'd be a good option. Who was the other one I was going to talk about? So Caleb Sarong. So a few people obviously jumped on him as a Freo man as well. Do you sort of see him as a guy that you just cross off now for the rest of your people even looking potentially bringing him in?
Yeah, I think now. So he had good scores, but they were in favourable conditions for him. He had the wet game in the Gold Coast where he laid 14 tackles or something, and then he had the wet game versus Pies where he laid a lot of tackles. So I think he had a rolling average of 120 in 3 weeks or something. So he was looking great and priced less than 100. But as a footballer, he hasn't come on as I think Dockers and Docker supporters would have wanted. So he's probably their 3rd best mid after Brayshaw, then Brodie in terms of pure football. And then with Fife coming back soon, he's going to be bumped again. So it's just going to be hard to rely on. And you look at the best fantasy players in the comp, they've got to be top 2 mids in their own team. And I don't think he's that. So he proved to be worth it for those who jumped on when he was priced low 90s. He put out a few 110s for them. But coming in now, I think you can just sit and let him go.
Yeah. I'll quickly ask you about 2 quick players, quick fire, and then I'll let you go as well. So you've got to head off. So 2 quick ones. So Tom Mitchell, what are your thoughts on him? He was here at, I think he was essentially full-time mid, so he's like 78% CBAs on the weekend. What do you think of him moving forward?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Tom Mitchell, because O'Meara was out, so he sucked up a lot of his usage. If I was told he was going to get 70% CBAs the rest of the year, then he'd be a number 1 trade-in target. And he's got the last bye, which I think you got him in partly for that reason too, which is that not many Pete players have that one. So he's a great target for that reason. It just appears it's a long enough sample size under Sam Mitchell that they want to share the load in their midfield group. They don't want him going out getting 40 touches. But I think Tom Mitchell's Tom Mitchell, and even if he gets 50, 60% CBAs, he'll average 105, 110, which isn't the Tom Mitchell of the past, but what he's priced at, and with that good buy, I think it's worth it. And then there's also that chance that as conditions reduce and there's more space back half the year, you see some big scores come out, he'll be on the end of them. So I think he's still a really good target right from now. Yeah.
And he's got Collingwood this week, which he'll go, I'm assuming, be against like he always does. And the final player I ask you about as well, so Jed Anderson today, so he was 149, 28 touches, 8 marks, 12 tackles and a goal, 149. Do you see, as a guy that's priced now, I think he might have risen to 680 this week, but he's a guy that's under 700. Is he a guy that, especially with the round 14 bye, you could potentially jump on for a couple of weeks, and worst case scenario, you get rid of him at round 14, but best case, you keep him for a bit longer than that?
Yeah, maybe. He's been a favourite of mine for a lot of years because he's had these big points per minute numbers. I think it was 2 years ago, he led the comp for points per minute, even more than Lachie Neale. I think this was 2020, the year Lachie Neale had the big year. So he's always shown he can score because he's a big tackler. He just had low time on ground and hasn't got his body right. But now it appears that he's back fit and firing. He's got forward status. He's reduced in price. So everything's pointing his way. It's just hard to trust Kangaroo. They scored well today, those Roos, but there's games there. And Jai Simpkins killed a few teams this year because they thought he was underpriced. But there's games when Kangaroos get blown off the park where they just don't get their hands on the ball. So there's always that risk with Jed Anderson. But no, I like him. And when everyone else, particularly through the buys, are liking the Sydney Swans forwards and the Bulldogs forwards who both share the buy, if you've got someone up forward who can be a top six on a different buy schedule, then he could well be it. And as you said, even if he just plays that role for that period, he's going to go up in cash next 3 weeks. But ideally, he's going to be a 95 to 100 averaging player, which will be enough to be a nice F6.
Would a Heaney to Anderson move be a move that you would tick off potentially doing that, especially if it works off for buys?
Yeah. One's getting CBAs, one isn't, and one's got that dangerous round 13 buy, and one doesn't. So that'd be a really nice move. So you're talking about you were looking at a Laird and you were looking at a Kelly, but I'd rather do that move, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm potentially looking at bringing both Anderson and Laird in. I'm looking at moving Butters and Heaney on and bringing in a rookie going McCartan down, which will give me enough cash to be able to facilitate those moves. So there you go. But yeah, so thank you very much, Selby, for jumping on. Now you've obviously got to head off, but I do appreciate you coming on and giving spending a little bit of time for us tonight. So thank you. If there's any other closing thoughts, do you think from the week, maybe before buys?
It's more just that buy structure. So there's a lot of targets, but for me, and it's just good now I'm playing Supercoach, although I don't like it as much as fantasy, I can kind of feel what the players are feeling. And for me, that round 13 buy is a dangerous one. So your trades this week, just make sure if you've got 21 players playing, then it's almost a waste. You'd be better off trading out someone playing this week, like a Heaney, to someone who will be playing next week and might even miss the week after, but the week after you should be fine, that final buy. So keep in mind that structure. But no, it's good. Thanks for let's jump on and we'll chat to you soon, Bales.
Yep, no worries. Chat to you soon. Thanks, Selby.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Bye. Right, thank you very much to Selby for jumping on, getting the goat of fantasy to jump on for us for a few minutes. So we'll get stuck into the rest of these games and then we'll go through. So the new DPPs have been announced as well. So I'll go through them in a sec and we can really just go over who potentially is an option of those guys that got it. So we'll go from the West Coast and Bulldogs game. So Dunkley went big with a 139. So he's just an animal. We just won score under 100 this year, which was a 62, which was very weird that he scored that. But 25 touches, 12 marks, 7 tackles, 2 goals, and 139 points. He obviously paid off if you put in captain as well. He's just the guy that fills the stat sheet up. So you're going to want to bring him in if you don't have him already. But if you've already got him, he's definitely going to be a top 2 forward. If not the number 1 forward. So he's amazing. Speaking of English, Tim English, he didn't miss a beat, did he? 132 points. Yeah, he's just very, very good. 25 disposals as well as a ruckman with 28 hit-outs. If he's doing that every week, he's going to be getting hundreds every week. So he's looking every bit the number 2 ruck or potentially the number 1 ruck because he's scoring more than Max at the moment. So let's just see how he goes. Could he be the R2 or an F3 or F4? I guess it would just depend who you want. Do you want a Darcy and then English, or do you want English and maybe Parker or something? So that's going to be interesting to see what you can look at. But yeah, speaking of those, definitely a guy that's going to be on my radar. Tim Kelly with a 130. So he did really well. So if you're looking for an underpriced guy, you could consider going with him. So what's he priced at now? So he's currently priced at 706, break even 95. So yeah, I personally don't trust him. I couldn't do it. Just with his history in that he can get tagged and he can get a low score. And with the Eagles obviously being poor, I don't think you can trust him as an option. But hey, if you're looking for a guy that's under 750 and you can't afford someone better, he's certainly in the mix of those underpriced guys you can look at bringing in. So what have we got here? Adam Treloar got a 129, so he was obviously huge. He's been great all year. Best I've seen him as a dog, and then best I've seen him in a few years actually. Like he's looking like that 105, not the 110, because I don't think he's going to squat with the amount of guys in the Dogs midfield, but he's looking great. He's covering the ground well. He's just very, very good. And again, he's got his name right in amongst those top 6 forwards. He's at the moment probably 4 or 5 based on the way he's going, maybe 6, obviously with the amount of forwards now they're doing well, and obviously a couple of important players are going to be getting DPP, so which we'll talk about in a sec as well. And so Warney has just sent me through the DPP. So we'll go through the DPs now, actually, because we've got a special message from the Warn Dog that he sent through these names. So these are the guys that have been named to get a dual position. So the players that of note, Marcus Bonampelli is officially a mid forward, so he becomes an automatic top 6 forward in my eyes. Bailey Smith, very much the same. He's now a mid forward. He's a guaranteed top 2 forward. Him and Dunkley are going to fight out for number 1. Who's going to get number 1? I probably have Bailey Smith just ahead of Dunkley, just based on the fact he plays so much game time. I don't really see how he shows, but Dunkley doesn't either. So you could easily have Dunkley over Bailey Smith. Who else we got here? So we've got Billy. So of the names of note. They're the 2 big ones. So I'll go through the rest of them sort of one by one. So Billy Frampton from the Crows has added defender status. So for draft, if you've got him in draft or whatever, if he's on the scrap heap, maybe it adds more flexibility for you. Sam Berry's got mid forward. So if you brought him in classic, or if you got him in draft, the forward flexibility will be quite handy for you. Darcy Cameron, which is the other big one. So he's added ruck status. He's now ruck forward, going to be very important over these bye rounds to be able to flick him there. Tyler Brown has been given he's been given forward status. Sorry, so I don't think too many people are looking at him. Ben Hobbs has added forward status. That'd be quite good for flexibility as well if you've got him on your bench. Isaac Smith has been added forward status. So is he a guy that we can look at? What's he averaging for the year? Because I know he was a very solid forward last year. So Isaac Smith, price of 7.11. Yeah, no, I don't think he's good for draft, but he's gotten 4 70s in his last 5, and the only other game was a 90. So he's consistently getting over 70, but he's just not a guy I don't think you can trust in classic. But good for draft if you've got him anyway. Blitzarves has added ruck status, so that's obviously interesting with him. If you've got him in classic, I know a couple of people jumped on him as a bit of a unique, and if Stanley's out for the rest of the year, he's not a bad option. Adam Kennedy has added defender stats for Giants, not an option really for many people looking at. Harry Perriman's added mid status, so if you did jump on him, good flexibility. Flynn Perez added mid status, no one has got him. Jason Francis added forward status, so if you're still rocking with him in your team, that's going to be again another one that's going to be important for flexibility over the buys. Connor Rosie's added mid status, again very similar with flexibility, very good for that. Ivan Soldo's added forward status. Jaden Short has added mid status. Very similar, good flexibility. Isaac Heaney's added mid status, but for me, it doesn't matter because at the moment he's gone this week. He's just annoying me too much, and he, for me, is on the never again list unless he plays 10 games in a row of where he plays midfield, because he just, I get sucked in every year. We all get sucked in every year, and he just doesn't perform. Ollie Florent has added defender status, so if you've got him in draft, good for that. Anthony Scott's added mid status. Rob McComb has added forward status. That's obviously very handy because I know a lot of us have still got him in the team, so good for flexibility as well. Connor West has added mid status. Sam Petrowski-Seaton has added forward status, and Jermaine Jones has added defender status. So thank you very much to the Warn Dog for providing me with that, and so I can give you guys that. Thank you. There we go. Just replying to the Warn Dog there. Thanking him very much for that. So, yeah. They're the DPP. So, yeah, Bont and Bailey Smith have got it. They're obviously the two big ones. So, yeah, if you've got them or considering them, they're great options to bring in. We'll continue with these games anyway. So, Jack McRae, 107. So, he had a big second half to get to that. He was on 32 points at half time, had a couple of multiple 30-plus point quarters, got his 107. I'm seeing him a bit now as a lower end of the top 8, if not just outside, because he's not scoring those big 140s that we've seen from him in the past. I wouldn't be trading him at all. I would definitely not be trading him until later in the year. Potentially he's a luxury trade. But if you look at him as an option, I don't know if I'd necessarily have him as one of my favourite options, because we've got to see it first that he's going to go get these 130-plus scores. He's only gone over 130 once all year, and that was exact 130 on the dot. And then he's got a couple of 120s in there as well. So he got the 120 against the Bulldogs in round 1, got the 119 against North Melbourne, he got the 123 against Collingwood. So, yeah, I don't know. He's definitely not got you trading at, but don't think he'd be number one target bringing in. Alex Withen got a 105, so he bounced back after his poor score last week. Can you trust him, though, being a sort of around those top 6 defenders? I'm not sure. There's not many West Coast, if any West Coast player I really trust. And one of them, Brady Hoff. I was looking at trading him out this week or next week or last few weeks. I've wanted to get rid of him for the buys, but he performed really well. He got 99, so I had him on bench. A lot of people did if you've got Hoff still in your team. So, yeah, he's a guy that's going to make a decent amount of cash now. I don't see him dropping out of the team because of how well he played. Break even of 43, and he's going to break even probably in the low 10s, or even in the single figures. Or I don't know if he'll have a negative break even. He'll probably have another good game for that, because that 6 he got last week's built in. But it would have been a lot handier if he didn't come on last week. But what are you going to do? Caleb Daniel and Bailey Dale, I thought they would have got to their hundreds, but they only got the 87, 86. So that's sort of, I don't think that either of the top 6 defenders there. Probably Bailey Dale's the pick of the 2, but yeah, I wouldn't have any of them top 6 defenders. Andrew Gaff got his standard 80 with his 28 touches and only the 1 tackle. So yeah, he's cheap, but I just don't think you can jump on him. Marcus Bonampelli got the 80, so probably a bit disappointing for people from what they wanted. But hey, if you brought him in, you're certainly not unhappy because he's got forward status. You're going to chuck him forward, and he's going to be a top 6 forward. So he's definitely a guy that a lot of people are going to be bringing in now. And if you jumped on him, then you don't have to worry about it. So Greg Clark got his 62, so 3 weeks in a row 60s. He's just getting the job done enough to get there. Are you going to want to move him on his round 13 buy? Probably, because you want him off your field. You want, obviously, a better player there. Whether that is a Jed Anderson player or a Dusty Martin, or if you hold a Butters instead, someone like that. Or if you haven't jumped on Canelo yet, that guys like that, if they're not going to be in the top position, they're still going to be outperforming what Greg Clark will. Even though I think Canelo is in the mix to be a top 6 forward based on his role that he's playing. Let's see what he does with Hopper and that back in the team, but he's definitely a guy that could be amongst those top sort of forwards, maybe is that 5 or 6 position. Roy McComb, the 55, solid enough. You probably would have won the 60-plus against West Coast, but beggars can't be choosers. A lot of people, I did put him on the field for Bailey Smith, so you can't really do much about it. It's better than a 40, obviously, so he's not too bad. Booker Karma's got a 50. That's okay for good for cash on your bench. I'm hoping he holds his spot. Hugo Hagen kicked 6 goals in the VFL on the weekend. I'm hoping that maybe they drop Sweet and they maybe bring Hugo Hagen in. They've got that 3-pronged attack of Hugo Hagen, Karmas, and what's his name? Norton. I can't believe I forgot Norton. Norton should be the first player I said out of that. But yeah, hopefully they're the 3 forwards moving forward. But there is a chance Karmas could lose his spot. He's a guy. But then again, they did kick 25 goals. I know it was only against West Coast, but 25 goals is a big day. So maybe they don't move on anyone. Karmas still had 3 shots at goal. So, and he might have had another one. I watched the Gold Coast game, so I was more looking at Tom Mitchell, if anyone. But yeah, hopefully Karmas holds his spot anyway for people that jumped on him. Callum Jameson, if you jumped on him, he only got a 35. He got more than Sam Hayes. So if you had him, you would have been happy you got more, but not exactly what you're after. And then Luke Cleary, for those people that had him on their bench, it's probably a good thing he didn't come in because he was a sub. So at least he keeps that negative break even. So if he comes back in the team, hopefully he does. I thought he was very stiff to get dropped. then he'll make some more money for you as well. Hopefully he comes in this week, be helpful with buys. Gold Coast and Hawthorn. So Brownlow's got 126. If you've got him in draft, that'd be a nice score for you to take there. Tom Mitchell. So obviously we spoke with Selby before about him. The big question is this role going to stay? So if it does, he's a top 8 midfielder, probably top 4 midfielder, and he's a bargain at still, he's probably going to be around that 800K mark. He's going to be very underpriced, right? But that's the question, is he going to keep this role? So no O'Meara, no Warple was in the VFL as well. I don't see Warple coming in anytime soon. He's been poor for a while. So until he starts stringing some good games in the VFL, I don't see him coming back in. O'Meara is the one that comes back in. So if you look at the CBAs on the weekend, so there was 27, I think, in the game. 28 CBAs in the game. So Mitchell attended 22 of 28. So he was a full-time mid-roll. The only one, I think he only missed from memory, I think he only missed one centre bounce where he was on the ground. The other ones, he was on the bench. So he was a pure midfield role. Then Kazitsky at 21, obviously, is the main ruck there. Newcomb with 18, Nash 16, Wingard 10, Will Day had 7, Connor McDonald 6, Finn McGuinness 6. Frost had a couple, Howe had a couple, and Shields had a couple as well. So obviously a couple like Howe and Frost would have been having that couple of there for the ruck role. But when you've got like McGuinness and McDonald, Will Day looks like he's playing a little bit more in the midfield/wing role. It's just going to be very interesting. I've got hope, the fact that there are a lot of people running through there, that Mitchell's role will stay above 60%. I've got hope, probably more the fact I brought him in, but he looked good on the weekend. His last 2 weeks, he's looked back to the Tom Mitchell of old, of racking him up, even when he did play only 48% last week in the midfield. You would imagine it's probably going to go back to that same 50-50 split, but for hope, hopefully he does. He got the 112. He gave away, 3 free kicks. I know one of them he tackled Took, and it shouldn't have been a free kick against. That would have been a 119 if that was the case. But yeah, he's definitely a target, especially with the fact he has Collingwood this week. He's more than likely going to go nuts. So, if you're looking at him as a target, I think he is a very good target to bring in. Toot Miller, 105. So he's been up and down last 4 weeks. He's gone literally he's gone like 100, under 100, like literally up, down. So he's gone over 100, then under 100. So yeah, I got it right. I got it wrong the first time. But yeah, so Toot Miller's a guy that I'd want to see a few more games strung together first before I'd look at him really as an option over like a Laird's, only about 10, 15K more expensive. I'd rather Laird at this point. Would you rather Mitchell for 100K cheaper? You probably would. Keys is about 50, 60K cheaper. Adelaide's amazing run coming up. You might rather Keys over Took. So you're probably getting Took based on the name at the moment because he's not performing what he has. He's still averaging 150, which is obviously solid enough. But yeah, is he going to be a top 8 mid? He might sneak in there. But at the moment, I don't think I've got him in my top 8 based on the way he's been up and down and a bit inconsistent. Sicily, 86. He just got it done again. So a bit difficult conditions up there as well for a intercept defender to have a big score. But he got his 80, so obviously that's very handy. Witswood, 84. You probably wanted more from him, especially against a great matchup. But he goes 84, so you weren't too happy with that. Matt Ralph, you still got him. You got his 66, but I just don't know. I've ever since he took that hit against Rioli in round 1, he hasn't scored over 100 since, and he hasn't been the same since. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but is it a coincidence? Maybe, because he's had to tag and do different roles. But in the preseason, in the round 1, he looked almost unstoppable. He looked bigger, he looked stronger, he was breaking tackles, he was doing everything. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what's happened with Matt Rao, to be honest. So if you've got him, you need to move him on, I think. So especially with his bike coming up in a couple of weeks. Joel Jeffrey, 59, that was solid. Good score for him. He didn't rely on goals to get to a 60. So he played really well. He looks like a very, very good player as well. So if you had him, obviously very, very good for cash gen as well. A good low break even. Sam Butler, 36. He's a guy I'm looking at, mainly just because he's playing the round 14 bye and he's a rookie. So it'd be a bit difficult to bring in a Mitch Owens or a Jacob Ware when they've got the bye this week and you just don't know if they're going to get named. Whereas Butler, if he gets named, which he should be, hopefully he can get you some 40s and 50s over the bye just to be an extra warm body there. So probably it from that game as well. Yeah, that is. So move on to the games from today. Then I'll get into your questions, and then that'll be it for tonight. So we'll quickly run through his games anyway. So Jed Anderson, as me and Selby spoke about before, potentially a decent option under 700k. He got a 149. He loves to tackle. He got a lot of marks. He played that midfield role. Going from a him to a Heaney, especially working wise, is great. Anderson's going to make money. So absolute worst case scenario, he gets a couple of 80s because he's shown last 3 weeks he got a 70 and 80 and then the big one today. And it was against St Kilda, a difficult team to score on. So if you bring him in, he gets your cover, you can trade him out in round 14, right? But because a lot of people got premiums in round 4 and not many people have got those guys you're looking to trade out in round 14 besides maybe a day cost because Cameron's performing well enough sharing the role that you probably don't want to move on from him. Then he's scoring well every week. So Jed Anderson, definitely he's an option for me this week. Jack Sinclair had his first score over 120 this year and 133. He looked great today. He's looking very, very good, isn't he? He's only got the 2 scores under 90 this year, and they were both 80s and 80 and 84. So, and they're back-to-back weeks. So, yeah, he's looking like he's going to be in the mix for those top 6 defenders. As Selby said, we can chuck a blanket on everyone pretty much besides Doherty, Crisp, and Short, I think. And even Short, I think, is coming a little bit closer back to the pack as well. He's got a few 80s in his last few games. He's not getting those cheap +6s that he did in the back, so maybe he's not going to be the top 2 defender. I would probably slip him down to number 3 at the moment. I'd have Crisp and Doherty over him. And George Hewitt, certainly, I would almost be putting in over Short. But Short, I think, will still be a top 6 defender. But, I think Sinclair was just great today. Brad Hill, again, he does score well against the sort of the easier opposition with a 127 today, so you can't consider him as an option. Jay Gresham, his first score over 100 this year, or did he end up getting a low 100 at some point? Well, that's definitely his first score over 110. So he's averaging 88 for the year. No, he got a 102 against Geelong. So 200 in his last 3 weeks. He looked good. If he was lower than 671, he might be a guy you could look at. But then again, he's a good alternative to a Jed Anderson as well. So, well, not alternative because people probably rather Gresham, to be honest, over Anderson. But yeah, a guy that's priced under 700. If you wanted to jump on him, you could. Luke McDonald got a 102. I wouldn't jump on him with Aaron Hall around the corner. But if Aaron Hall was out for a lot longer, then Luke McDonald could potentially be an option that you could consider as a cheap defender. Josh Simpkin, 99. He's been a bit disappointing this year. Brad Crouch, 97. Mitch Owens, 95. So he's going to be probably one of the most traded in players in round 13 after his bye. You could bring him in this week because I don't see how he gets dropped. He laid 10 tackles, kicked a couple of goals, 14 disposals. I don't see how he gets dropped, but on the off chance that he doesn't make the cut, I think the better play is to wait till round 13 because a lot of coaches, what they're going to do, they're going to go May McCartan and DeConing down that week. They're going to bring in Ware and Owens, and then they're going to go someone up. That's the play that's probably going to happen. And you're probably going to bring in a Wines or a Doherty or a Zach Merritt or a Short or someone like that on the round 12 bye. So yeah, he's definitely a guy that I'd be definitely looking at bringing in. Dave Juniak, only a 74. So I sort of was looking at him potentially as an option this week. We've got another 100, but he didn't sort of get the score I wanted. 74 is not awful, but it's certainly not what you want if you did jump on a guy like him. Horn Francis with a 66. Obviously, the added forward stats will be very, very handy over the buys to be able to flick him forward. But I know a lot of people did move him on. Anyone else in this game? Winhay got a 47. He's pretty much being a 40 player last few weeks. So, yeah, if you've got him, you could move him on this week. He's got the bye. He's now up. What's he up to now, or what will he potentially be at? So, Winhager is 311, break even of 36. He's probably going to go up maybe 10K. He's going to be about 320 this week. So, yeah. But then again, you might hold on because he looks like he'll hold his spot. So, probably not enough to move him down. Whereas a guy like a Durden this week is a guy that a lot of people are going to move down. McCartan is a guy that people are going to move down. So, that's, I think, what a popular play will be because like a guy like Durden only scored, what was it, a 29. So that's probably the end of his cash gen. But we'll talk about him in a sec anyway. So is that it from that game? I think that Paul Kerr's got a 47. If you jumped on him, he hasn't been scoring well enough. Tyrone Thomas, another 40, 44. So yeah, he's just certainly not an option. He's going to be very cheap next year with the injury affected gains in the 40s and stuff. He's going to be very cheap and potentially a guy that's underpriced, but yeah, not this year. And yeah, that's it from that game. So Collingwood and Carlton. So what have we got here? So Sam Walsh, 120, first score over 120 or more this year. He played really well. Do I see him as a top 8 mid? No, I see him more as a 105 guy. But what's he priced at now? I think he's getting cheap. So obviously fantasy's not open yet. Like it hasn't lifted, obviously, with adding the DPPs. Walsh is at 865. So he's underpriced based on what he's been doing. So like that's his third score in a row of over 110. So he's getting the job done every week. And yeah, he's definitely a good alternative to a guy like Paddy Cripps because Paddy Cripps isn't getting it done. And that was probably the only other guy I would have asked Selby about what he would have done with Paddy Cripps because he's certainly got to see it. But Paddy Cripps, he got the 89 today, so that's his third score under 100. It's his third score in a row under 110 in full games. So I don't know what to do with him because he's still playing this a little bit in the ruck. He's got the bye this week. He's priced still high. His break-even was 134, so he's going to go down a little bit. But yeah, is he a guy you move on? If you can get a different, like a Laird or something in for him, I don't think that if that's a luxury trade and you haven't got many issues, then that's a trade that I wouldn't be afraid to do because he just isn't looking the same as he has. I think when Pitney comes back and when Harry Mackay comes back, he'll be playing that just that pure midfield role, and he'll be an option then, and he'll probably drop in price a bit by then. But until then, I just don't know with Paddy Cripps. He's one I honestly just don't know. So Adam Chera played well, 119. A few people jumped off him after his 40 last week. So that obviously, yeah, that's unfortunately, if that's fantasy, just sort of slapping your face, really, just saying, yep, no, that's not happening. So, yep, George Short, 116. He's just amazing, isn't he? At the moment, if someone said, who would you rather, George Hewitt or Jaden Short, I would be picking Jaden Short. I'd be picking George Hewitt at this point because he's just consistently getting good scores every week. And he plays pure midfield, whereas obviously Short sort of alternates between forward and defence a little bit. But, mid and forward at the moment, actually. Sorry, not mid-defence, mid-forward at the moment. So, yeah, I'd probably rather Hewitt, but I think a lot of people have got Hewitt and Short, so I don't think you've got to make that choice. But I think Hewitt's probably number 3 at the moment, but maybe number 4. Maybe you keep Short just based on what he's done this year. Doherty, 114. He's just a number 1 defender, so if you can grab him in round 13, I think that's a very good play there. He's probably... Wines was my number 1 target, but after getting the 80 I think he got today, I'm probably more tempted to go for a guy like Doherty, who I know is going to be a top 6 defender, whereas maybe a Wines, I just wait again. But again, you sort of know what you're going to get one, so he's certainly a target as well. Jack Crisp, 102, just gets it done every week. Again, that's now 8 games in a row over 99, so he's just a machine. He's arguably right. I think he's a number 2 defender now. I think he's right there with Doherty, but I think Doherty is the number 1 because he's just, I think. But then again, it's like Doherty and Crisp are so similar. They get it done every single week. So, yeah, I don't know who I'd rather out of those two. Probably Doherty just, but Darcy Cameron, another 94. So, again, the thing I love about Darcy Cameron is he tackles and he marks. So, 5 marks, 6 tackles again. So, he got a 94. So, his break-in was 32. He's going to be closing in on 700K. So, his last 5 scores since having this ruck roll, 107, 112, 90, 115, 94. A lot of people are going to swing him into their ruck this week after getting rid of Bruce. So, I think that's definitely a viable play, that's for sure. So, I was looking to move him on at his bye, and this was sharing the role with Cox. He was the main ruck, and he looked a better ruck by a fair way. So, yeah, I don't think we move Darcy Cameron. He's probably too late to jump on. He's a bit expensive now, but he's got Hawthorn this week, who I don't know if Lynch will be back for that game, but if not, that's a great matchup for him. And then they've got a tough matchup against Melbourne. So I think we can reassess him at round 14, but at the moment, I don't think we're moving him on until at least Grundy comes back. So, well, then you'd move him on when Grundy comes back. But yeah, he's just performing really well. Jordan DeGoey, 91. So he played solid today. So if you're looking for a guy that's cheap as well, he's not a bad option playing that pure midfield role. And that's not changing. He's got that role. Attend the most CBAs for Collingwood with 21. Or Penbury had 21 as well. How many CBAs were there in the game? I'm just trying to add it up here. Lipinski had 1 CBA. I don't know why they recruited him if they're only going to play him for 1 centre bounce. He's a midfielder. I know he played well as a bit of a forward today, but I don't know. So Cox went to 7 and Cameron. So there was 26 CBAs to go, 21 CBAs, probably the other 5 when he's on the bench. So yeah, he's an underpriced guy you can consider because I think he's not going to give you those 50s that he did when he was sick and that, but he's not going to be a top 6 forward, but he's a guy that round 14 bye, you can ride till then, and then after his bye, you can ride him if you need to hold him, and he's a guy that you can move on to a top 6 forward at a later date. Paddy Cripps, we mentioned before with 89. I'm just not sure with him. Taylor Adams, 76. Again, you just cannot trust him. He just hasn't done it all year. So he's playing a bit more game time, but he's just not scoring. So Paddy Dow got a 72. There you go. Paddy Dow back in the team and he gets a 70. So he played okay watching him today. What else we got? Nick Dacos, 52. That's a bit poor. Again, he's probably a guy that you're going to have to hold on through the around 14 by, then move him on then. But yeah, it pretty much confirms you're going to have to move him on at that point if that wasn't really confirmed to you. Jack Carroll was a sub, came on, got a 39. He looked good in patches as well. But yeah, if he only would have made like maybe 10, 15K, if that's his break-in was in the 20s. So yeah, and again, is he in the best 22? I think he's a very good player and he'd be a good player for Carlton in the future. But for this year, I think you can move him on. He's got a bye this week. So I think he's going to be about 340K now. So you can move him on. And then Corey Durden. So his break-even, I think, was 21 this week. So let me have a quick look at that. So 21 break-even. He's going to be close to 400K, 393. I think he's a guy that we can say goodbye to this week, but he's done very, very well for us. It was very good that I think he was about 320 and he got that 70 or whatever, and he regenerated his cash generation and made his break-even low again. So he gave us an extra 60, 70K, which could be very, very handy. Could be the difference when you're getting a guy you don't want to a guy you really want. So, so it was the week he played the Crows. So he was at 332 and we thought, he's cash generation. Then he punched out a 79 and 65 back-to-back weeks. So, yeah, he's definitely a guy that we're very, very thankful for this year. And that is it from that game. It's the final game. So the Port and Essendon game. So Darcy Parish top scored in this game with a 119. So he looks very impressive at the moment. He's expensive. I'd rather a couple of options over him. But if you want to bring Darcy Parish in, he's not the worst option to bring in because he's getting it done. He's only had 3 scores this year under 100, and I think they were 80. So he's been really consistent this year. Another 39 touch. He's just very, very good. Connor Rosie, 113. So if you did have him, that sort of creates a thing where it's like, do you want to move him on or do you keep him? Because his break-in will be low again. He'll make more money. So that's a decision you have to make. But I would probably still move him on. It was against Essendon, so it's an easy matchup on paper. So, yeah, I would probably move him on. That's what I'd be doing. Nick Martin with a 113. So I trade him out this week. A lot of people did as well, if you could, and he gets a 113. It always happens when you do that, when you get rid of a rookie that's been successful like that. If you got rid of Dacos next week, he's probably going to punch out a 90. Knowing him, he's got Hawthorn as well, so I would be keeping him for that as well. But Nick Martin, do you keep him after the bye? I think you still move him on. I think this is the week where you can, if you're moving on round 12 players, if your buy structure is great and you're trying to move on your rookies and stuff, I think you can still move Nick Martin on. He did have against Sydney he was on 21 a 3/4 time and he got a massive last quarter. That's what I moved him on because I thought wet weather, he might score poorly. I'd rather play McComb this week on field and keep Whitfield, which obviously turned out this week it was poor for points, but I think keeping Whitfield, I think long-term will be okay for me. Zach Merritt, 103. So he is coming in cheap now. So he's another guy that he's going to be under 800K this week. 807, break-in 132. He's going to be like 790 something. So he's underpriced. He's a potential option. So in terms of centre bounces, what did he do? So he was the second most for Essendon. Parish was the most with 14. He was second most with 12. So that's interesting. How many was there? So there was 19 CBAs in the game today, and 12 of 19. He was back to a few more CBAs. So he's underpriced based on what he can do. And yeah, certainly a guy that you can consider off his buy in round 12. I've got to get back to that. Yep. Zach Butters, 92. Oh, they got added a tackle after. That's looks a lot better now. 92, solid again. I think you can hold him if you want to, because he's gone back-to-back 90s and he got an 80 before that. He's looked better the last few weeks. He went to the second most CBAs for Port behind Wines. He went to 10, but Rosie and Drew also went to 10, both 9. So he's getting that 50-50 split. His scoring is better. He looks better. So you can hold him as a guy that you can move on as a luxury trade later on. But if you want to move him on this week, there's certainly nothing wrong. At least you can leave with less of a sour taste in your mouth. Houston, 91. He's been consistent this year. He's getting it done. Not my favourite option, but he's doing well. Ollie Wines, only an 86. I thought he would have scored more than that today against Essendon, and in those conditions, I thought those conditions would have suited him more. But he's still an underpriced guy you can look at. But with an 80, I don't think he's got that same ceiling as like a Mitchell. That's why I went Mitchell. Plus Mitchell worked a lot better for buys. That's why I went him. But with Wines, I don't think he's going to score many 130s. He's got the ceiling to score 130, but I think he's going to be more that consistent, a bit like Walsh. He reminds me a bit of Walsh, that consistent 105, 110 guy. So, yeah, he's not my favourite, but he is cheap. He's priced it in the 90s. So he's, based on where he's priced it, he's probably he's underpriced by like 10 points. So, what else we got here? Ben Hobbs got a 70, so that was solid. If you're still rocking with him, good for cash gen as well. Sam Hayes only a 34, so if you did have him, that wasn't great viewing. And then Tex Wanganeen as well, who, if he gets named in round 13, he's another rookie potentially that you could look at. I know he's not going to score great. He only got a 25, but he's a guy that we're looking for any rookies. It's not, when you get into round 13 or 14 in the buys, it's not so much about them playing post buys, because you sort of still want cash gen, but you want your numbers. So if he's like the only rookie playing, if Owens and Ware don't get in there, then he's a guy that you can, desperate times, you might have to look at a guy like him. But I'd be definitely looking at Ware and Owens over him. So that's the games review wrap up done. So Lockout still hasn't lifted yet. So yes, I got 2050. Looks a bit better than 2046. 2050 is not too bad, but I still went down 2,000 spots, so not too great. So let's get your questions. Well, if you're watching live, mate, if you've got a question, put it in live chat, and I'll answer those as well. If you are also new, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That obviously does help out a lot. I did see someone, did someone subscribe earlier that I saw? Yeah, Robbie G. So Robbie G, thank you very much for that. I do like when the notifications come up, so then I can sort of say thank you very much to this person. But yeah, thank you very much to anyone. Stalin has also just subscribed. So thank you very much, Stalin, as well. So if you are watching, yeah, subscribe. It does really help me out, and I do really appreciate it as well. And also, if you are watching as well, make sure you leave a like on the video. That's always very much appreciated as well. I don't exactly, so 422 now we're up to. So yes, thank you very much for the support you guys always show on the channel. So we're currently up to, what are we up to? 19 likes. So yeah, if you want to jump on the likes, feel free. So thank you very much. All right, let's get into your questions anyway. So what do we got? So actually, yeah, I'll read out the scores as well if you guys put in your +3s in that as well. So Screech says 22-27 up, rank a couple of hundred spots to 1,029 overall. That's very, very nice, Screech. Well done. +3 goes to Sinclair, -3 to Petrarca and Zorko. And then your trades this week, you're looking at Sinclair, Mead, and Hobbs to 2 rookies, and then Titch or Jed Anderson. So if you're looking at the 2, I'd go Titch. Obviously, you just not got more trust with him. But with the rookies, obviously, it just depends if we got rookies to pick up that are named this week. Because the only problem with picking multiple rookies up this week is that they might not be named in the coming weeks, or they'll have their bye coming up. So for me, I'll probably be looking at going like a Butters type to an Anderson or a DeGoey. Then I'll be looking at going Durden down to a Butler, and then hopefully I have enough money to go like Heaney up to Laird. That's my preferred plans. Obviously, I don't know if I can do that. I've got to, obviously, when Lockout lifts, I'll have a look at that. But that's potentially what I'm looking at doing. So I'm looking at going one sort of mid-pricer to mid-pricer that's got a better buy. So Anderson to go in my 2 top targets because I got that round 14 buy. So worst case, you trade them then. Best case, they do quite well and you can move them on at a later date. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at doing. But yeah, I'd still like those trades if there are a couple of rookies that are named. Screech. So Andrew Griffith says 22.44 up to 365 overall. Not too bad. Durden goes to Mitch Owens, I reckon, in round 13. Hope Hobbs and McComb get forward. Yeah, and obviously I've read that out. So, but yeah, so it's great that they get forward status for flexibility. And yeah, 365, very, very nice rank. So I wish I was certainly up there. But I think if I went Mills over Taranto when I was looking at that, and then I went Buddy Smith hasn't been too bad, so like, I can't really say him. But even if I went him to Laird, we'll say him instead of Laird. No, Laird instead of him. And then I went Parker over Heaney, I'd probably be ranked inside the top 3,000 based on that, because it's cost me a lot of points, especially last 2 weeks with Taranto missing back-to-back weeks, Buddy Smith missing this week, and then Heaney being really poor for 4 weeks in a row. So I would have been doing a lot better, but hey, 50-50 calls, you just have to you have to move on from them, I guess, but I won't be. So, what else we got here? Moonboy, you guys obviously don't have Petrarca and Zorko. Good scores, I had a shocker. Yeah. Zorko, very poor. Petrarca, poor, but we know that he was crook. So it would have been great if we'd known, because I would have had Hoff play for him if Petrarca was out, and that would have got me a 99. So it would have given me 59 more points. But what are you going to do? What do we look? Andrew Griff says, do we trade a round 12 primo if we have 19 players? So I wouldn't be trading primos in terms of top 8 midfielders, top 6 defenders, top 6 forwards, or like a Gorn or anything like that. But if it's a Cripps, for example, who some people are getting a bit worried, he's high break even still. He's playing this he's still playing a ruck role. He's not looking the same, not looking like that 110, 115 guy. He's a premium you can move on in this round. But more often than not, if you got 19, that means you'll have more premiums moving forward. So you want to hold on those premiums. That's what I'll be doing there. What else we got here? Screech says, I'm considering trading Butters over Rosie, to be honest. Yeah. I think either or can go. I think that they are not going to be top 6 forwards, so you can move both of them on anyway. Moonboy, -3, Nick Martin. Yeah, I'm assuming Nick Martin was out of your team this week, Moonboy as well. So yeah. What have we got here? Because there's obviously a few people in chat. I do like the people communicate in chat as well. It's always good stuff to see people are interactive in these as well. Andrew Griffiths traded Martin a Bont. Even though you lost 33 points this week, it's going to gain you a lot of points in the long term. Bont's now forward, so I certainly wouldn't be too unhappy with that trade, even though it just typical sort of fantasy doing that to you this week. So, so Screech said, I captain Trelly, lol, after VC on track. I don't know who is Trelly. I don't know. It's not Tim. I'm assuming it's not Tim Kelly. You want to captain Tim Kelly, I wouldn't imagine, but I don't know who Trelly is. Maybe Josh Kelly. I don't know. No, but he played before, so I don't know who that is. Screech, but so Shannon Barron says 22.56, currently ranked 726. Oh, everyone who's watching and they're all better. Everyone's better than me. And people come to me for advice. I'm ranked near 8,000 now. I was 5,000 a couple weeks ago, a couple poor weeks. But +3 Captain Dunkley, very, very nicely done. -3 Zorko. Please, obviously been very poor. It was between him and Stewart. I only did it because of the round 14 bye. FMDT. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that was the correct call as well. Getting Zorko over Stewart for your buys, and it didn't work, unfortunately, which sucks. But yeah, 50-50 calls. I've had, as I just said, though, before, I've had those calls as well this year. So I know exactly how that feels. Oh, Moonboy, yes. Yeah, you saw the Twitter comment between me and Selby. Yeah, I'm not going to brag, but I did say last night, I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes out during the week, but it was surprised was this morning or last night that Petrarca was sick, because he didn't look right. He didn't look like tackling. He just didn't get near the ball. He didn't look like his ferocious self. So I sort of thought that he looked very much like a Zach Butters when he was sick. So I just thought that was going to happen. Moonboy, +3 goes to Parker. Hasn't let me down yet. Parker's been great. Robbie G, Treloar +3 on debut. Yeah, Treloar has been very, very good this year. Anthony Beresford said, Freo win most games when Darcy's fit. He's a beast. I chased Mitchell, but Darcy was a Bruce change. I lamented over. Yeah, Darcy is an option. I just don't know with his body. I don't trust his body, but he's certainly going to be a top sort of 2 or 3 ruckman if he's going to be fit for the rest of the year. And yeah, Mitchell, you certainly wouldn't be too unhappy with grabbing because he looked good. So and he looks hopefully good for the next few weeks. Shannon Barron also said Butters had a points correction and was given +4, and I increased 24 spots. Oh, that's nice. I don't think I increased much at all, being ranked where I am. But what are you going to do? Bloody Matt, and I keep forgetting to put this comments on screen. Bloody Matt, unlucky mate, I won the matchup. Yeah, Matt, you did. So, mate, congrats to you. If you saw who I had on the bench, I had Taranto, Whitfield, Bailey Smith, and Bruce, mate. So I would have got you if it wasn't for having those guys on the bench. But no, congrats, Matt. He's a mate of mine. He's in the private league that I've got going on. He beat me. I was top. Now I'm going to be third, I think. Now I think I would drop a couple of spots in that league. So got cash on the line in that one. So I need to keep winning matchups. So Shannon Barron says, here we go. These are good trade questions. So here we go. So trade options are Butters to Cameron, Bruce to English, and Cripps to Laird, Carnage pending. So they're your options. So I'm assuming that you're going one of those, or if you're going to go all 3. If you can go all 3, that's huge. You're grabbing Laird. Oh, actually, you probably could, because Butters to Cameron's not going to cost you much. Bruce to English will cost you a little bit, and then Cripps to Laird will cost you a little bit as well. But if you've got 200k in the bank, you can do that. Would I grab Cameron now? I don't know. He's going to be 680. He's going to be expensive. I don't know if I'd jump on him, but he's been great. That's for sure. Excuse me. Speaking of, he's been great. Definitely grabbing him is a very good option. And then Cripps to Laird. I don't mind it. That's something that if I can't afford Laird, I might look at doing, because, yeah, Cripps is just not looking the same. And again, you can trade him out. If he looks great and looks like a 110, you can bring him back in. But is he going to be a top 8 midfielder? I don't know he is, because I think there's a lot of guys averaging 110. I don't know if I see Cripps averaging 110 from here. Maybe when Pitney comes back, he might do really well, but he'll be cheaper by then, and Pitney's not going to be back for a while. So, and when Pitney's back, they'll have him and De Koning. He won't be doing any rut roll. He'll just be focusing purely on winning the football. So, yeah, with him, I'm not too sure. I don't think there'll be too much carnage, though, this week, because buys, we've got a lot of people on buy anyway. So, but I guess we'll see. Hopefully we don't have too much. I copped it all this week, so I don't want any more. Robbie G says, Whitfield, halfback, Perryman, wing, Josh Kelly, full-time inside mid, Cogs, Taranto, rotating mid forward like Dunkley and Bont. I think that is definitely what could potentially be. I think maybe Josh Kelly might split. It might be a 60-40 split between maybe that and a wing, maybe. I think Taranto will play a lot more midfield. Canio's look that great. He's just playing in the midfield. So I think those two will get plenty of midfield time as well. So we'll just have to see. We'll have to see in round 13 when Taranto and Whitfield and guys like that come back, which I'd imagine they do, and Bruce comes back in. So I'd imagine they all do. But we'll just have to see. And obviously, Moonboy says Bruce straight back in. I'm hoping so. He should be. Flynn got beaten convincingly by McInerney and Fort. So I'd imagine they bring big, juicy Prusy back in. Barnes says Zorko lost his midfield role on the weekend. Only 7 CBAs. Very annoying. Yeah. He's only getting about 10 or 12 CBAs anyway. So he'll probably had a couple less, but 49 is still no excuse for what he did. Yeah, Berry took, yeah, and Barnes, you said Berry took him. Yeah, Berry did play a lot more in the midfield, and he looked good. So I don't know if that's going to change. Anthony Beresford said dropped from 500s to 1400s. Zorko and Petrarca. Yeah. Because a lot of people around you would have, yeah, definitely not had those two. So, and Petrarca is not a bad option because he's looked like a top 8 mid and he was 6, so he'll be fine. And Zorko was looking great before the 40, but after showing that, it did sort of that inconsistency with him did sort of show its ugly head again. So Max Matthews dropped 1,500 spots, had 6 players scoring under 65. Yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to help you, that's for sure. Screech says, thinking of doing TDG. I'm assuming you mean Jordan Nagoe. Wait, doing a TDG. Sorry. Yeah, I've got you now. Triple downgrade. Skinner, Mead, and Sharp to Saligo, Hoff, and Owens. I don't know if I'd bring in Hoff because I think he'll keep his spot, but he's got the bye in round 13. Is he going to be back after the bye? Probably not. They're going to get Sheed and Yo back, so I don't think he'll be in the bye, but he's playing in defence, so maybe it doesn't matter too much. And they do like him. He's their number one pick from last year, so maybe he keeps spot. Saligo's a good option to bring in, especially with a good matchup. And then Mitch Owens, I'd probably wait. So Screech, what I'd do, I'd probably go a double downgrade. I'd probably go Sharp to Saligo, and then you can go and Mead to Hoff to get a guy playing. But then I'd probably go someone up, and I would get Owens in round 13 just to doubly make sure that he does play in round 13 instead of grabbing him and then he gets dropped for some unknown reason. So, Robbie G, 5 dogs in forward line, Dunkley, Treloar, Smith, Bont, English. Yeah, it's definitely those 5 are going to be in the top 6. I'd probably rather have English as my R2 at the moment, and I'd rather have your Dunkley, Treloar, Smith, Bont, and then get 2 other guys, maybe Taranto, and it could be a Parker or a Cornelio or someone like that. So that's probably what I'd be looking at doing. Robert G. Isaac Smith, interesting. Yeah, it is interesting with his DPP, but probably not. He's over 7. If he was 600-ish K, maybe, but with I think he's more a draft guy. Yes, McComb is very handy. Anthony, very, very handy indeed. Robert G, never mind. I'll just look at his stats. Yeah, I know. And you're exact same what I did. I obviously, everyone was here. They saw it. So, yeah, I did do that. So, yeah, not an option, unfortunately. Draft would be good, though. Andrew Griffith says, day cost to Anderson. I wouldn't bring Noah Anderson. He got an 80 on the weekend, I think it was. No, he got a 64, sorry. So, I wouldn't bring him in. I'd hold Dacos as he got a 50, but he's got Hawthorn this week. Great matchup. If you're moving Dacos on, you've got to move him on to a top line guy, or if it's not top line, you move him on to a guy that's priced a bit lower, like a Guthrie or Wines or Tom Mitchell. I'd much rather those guys over Noah Anderson. So that's what I'll be doing. Max Matthews said, Ryan Marshall not forward slash. Yeah, he didn't get there. He was under, I think he was about 29%, so he wasn't as close as the other guys, but yeah, he won't get it. He might get it in round 18, so just keep an eye on that. But yeah, could be something there. Would have thought De Koning over Dacos, 31 points, nearly. Yeah, I would have played. I would have taken De Koning's score over Dacos, but if you couldn't do that, yeah, you would have expected Dacos to score more points. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, Anthony, that's what he did. So you were going to loop, but then Cleary with the vest. Yeah, you couldn't have taken that risk. So unfortunately, cost you some points, but you couldn't have done much about that, really. Barnes, this is an interesting question. So can Jordan De Goey replicate his second half last year? Today, he looked good, cheap, so could swap Butters to him to fix buys and upgrade with 2 other trades. That's exactly the sort of thing I'm looking at doing Barnes as well. So just if it works, he's got a great buy. It's definitely an option. I'm definitely looking at that. So yeah, him and Anderson are the 2 guys. I might not actually be able to afford Jed Anderson, so that's why I might have to go to Goey, just depending on the trades I want to do. But yeah, certainly something to look at. Porter Dennis, did anyone watch Jed Anderson play? Is he the real deal, or was it just a fluke? So he played midfield. He looked good with a 149. He filled the stat sheet up. He tackles lots. So he's a guy that could potentially be an option. If you're looking at a guy, especially around 14, as I've said, plays poor for the next 2 weeks. Worst case scenario, you get rid of him at round 14 by it's fine. But because the buys, your low scores get knocked off, you can take a risk on a mid-price, because if he gets a 40, but everyone else scores 60, he'll score drop off anyway. But he's got the ability, he can go get a 120 and be one of your top scorers for the week. So I think it's not a bad play, that's for sure. Stalin said, anyone considering Blitzarves added ruck to his position this week? If Reece Stanley was confirmed to be out for the rest of the year, I'd be considering him. But the fact that we just don't know what's happening with him, I don't think we can. So, yeah, I'm not too sure. And with Blitzarves, but he's been very, very good recently nonetheless. Anthony Beresford says, Blitzarves, Darcy or English need a solid second set and forget. 100% for me, it's English. And I think that's by a decent way. English, he looked amazing after so long out. He's looked the best scorer. He's been the number 1 ruck this year, been better than Max. So I'd be going English over Darcy. I don't trust Darcy's body. And then Blitzarves, you just don't know when Stanley's going to come back in if he does. So if Stanley was ruled out for the rest of the year, Blitzarves is definitely a play there. You could put English forward and put Blitzarves in ruck. But until that was unconfirmed, you can't go Blitzarves. I don't think he's expensive as well. Screech says, Jen Anderson followed Brad Crouch around all day, hence the 12 tackles. If this role continues, his points per minute can't be ignored. yeah, I think he's going to continue this role because he looked really good today, and I see it as something that will happen. So I think he's a decent option. Yes, Stalin. Yeah, Anthony. He was replying to Anthony's comment saying, "Yeah, English and Cameron are playing like top 6 forwards. Could go all 3. 100%. Yeah, you could. You really could do all 3 of those. So, 100%. Moon Boy. Bales is my favorite content creator. Very underrated. Oh, thanks, man. I do appreciate that. I do appreciate the love showing Moon Boy and everyone showing in the chat. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Screech, trade Rosie after a 110 plus, outscored Butters and Wines in a port win. Yeah, it's interesting. He adds that bit of doubt now, but I would still, I'd still look to move him on if you've got nothing else to do. If you've got rookies to move on, then I'd move that and get rid of those red dots, because the number one thing you should be doing this week is getting rid of the red dots and bringing in rookies that are going to play. So that's where you could move a Jackson Mead to a Mitch Owens and get that done this week, and then you can do that next and move other guys next week. But it's definitely a play, moving those red dots and keeping Rosie. But yeah, it's just interesting. Bob Alligator says, is Darcy Cameron an auto trade when Grundy comes back, or is there a possibility they share the role? I think they're going to share the role because of Grundy would have been out for a while, but I think Grundy will still have the lion's share of the work. It might be a 65-35. It could be very similar to Gawn and Jackson, but until that happens, I don't think we can trade Darcy Cameron. He just looks so good, even sharing the role with I don't know what happened there. I apologize. That I literally don't know what happened. Did my computer just go back on me? I don't know. So sorry about that. I was surprised I kept going, but we'll quickly finish up here anyway. So we'll get stuck into the last couple of questions. Yeah, Dusty Cameron Hole. Moonboy trade Proust English. Yep, tick that off. You don't know about Proust, and English is going to be a guaranteed sort of top 2 ruck, if not a top 6 forward. So you've got the luxury of moving him forward if you want to. So yeah, definitely tick that off. Stan Lockout's over. Okay, that'd be good to see what happens. So Brendan Green says got 22-25. Clawed toward the top 10,000 after being 22-7-32 at round 8. I'm a bit confused on the strategy for round 12. Seems like you're going for a mid to mid and a couple of downgrades. Yeah, so I'm looking at going rookie down, a mid to mid, and then a mid to or a non-top 6 forward to a top 8 midfielder. That's what I'm looking at doing this week. So Moonboy, Trelly equals Trelaw. Okay. Thank you, Moonboy, for that. Okay, now I do understand. Moya Monkey, when do DPP come into effect? Because Baz is still mid. That will just take maybe a little bit of time for the system to update. So that'll be shortly, I would imagine. No, it's updated now. So Bailey Smith's now mid forward. So that'll be all fixed for you, Moya Monkey. Mo Lester, hey Bales, what do you do with Dacos? Is it time to move him on? If you can move him on and it doesn't affect your buys too much, you can. But Hawthorn this week, good matchup. I would still be looking to hold, because if he gets a poor score, you've got more than 18. It'll get chalked off anyway. It won't get counted. But he's got the ability to go big and could go big against Hawthorn. So I would probably stick to holding. But if you want to trade, it's certainly a decent time to move him on. Cuz Judd, Baz might not get forward though. I did say before, Baz is confirmed obviously to get mid forward, so it's in the game added now. So it's good news all around for Bailey Smith owners like myself. Porter Dennis, can Ben Hobbs go? Not necessarily, because he's still making money. Got a 70 again. If it's the rookie that you want to get rid of this week that gets you down to another rookie to give you money, you can move him on. But if you got Durden, I'd move Durden on first. I don't know if there's many. I'd move McCartan on, because at least McCartan's got his bike count, whereas Hobbs will be back in round 13. So yeah, I'll be looking at doing that. Barnes, Rosie just decided to go 60 in round 13. His scoring's not reliable. I'm trading. Yeah, that's a very good point, Barnes. So he hasn't been consistent so far. He's only got those big scores this round and the other 2 earlier on. So, and then the last thing here, Brendan Green, who are your targets coming off the round 12 buy? I might be able to pick up one this week because I've got 21 on field at the moment. Well, it's very, very good buy planning. So in terms of round 12 players I'm looking at, so get them up here. No, not North Melbourne. There we go. So the players I'm looking at off their bye. So Parrish and Josh Kelly, very expensive, but if I'm looking at a premium mid, they could come into contention. I'd rather wait on Kelly to see what happens when Taranto and that come back. Sam Walsh could be an option for someone to consider. Doherty's one of my top options. Looking at him, he's a top 2 defender and he's really good. Jaden Short could be a guy you consider. He's getting a bit cheaper now, but you could wait for him to get a little bit cheaper. If you don't have Sinclair, not a bad option to consider. George Hewitt, if you don't have him. Ollie Wines, Zach Merritt, Taranto, if he comes back. You could wait a week to watch him, but he's got a great matchup first up. I think Whitfield would be a great option. I think he will go back to that role. So, yeah, a couple of guys there. And Cornelio's probably the other one as well. So they're probably the guys you probably look at off the round 12 bye. So, did I move down any spots? So what did I come for the week? 33,000 for the week. So that was no surprise. So, yeah, at this stage, as I said, I'm going to go my trades for the week at the moment. I'm going to be going Durden down to Butler. I'll be going, if I can go Butters to DeGoey or Anderson, preferably Anderson if I can't afford to be DeGoey, and then going Heaney up to Laird if I can afford it. So that's my ideal trade. If I can't afford Laird, I might go get 2 rookies just to get Laird because I want Laird. That West Coast matchup is very, very juicy and I really want him in my team. So Laird's my favourite player in the comp as well, so that adds more appeal to it. So there you go. So anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you smash the like button. It takes a couple of seconds. It's very easy to do. It helps me out, and I do appreciate it. And also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're close to 500. We're slightly creeping there. So if you can help me achieve that, that'd be obviously amazing as well. Social media links in the description below. If you've got any questions or whatever, hit me up on my Twitter. Preferably, but if you want to hit me up on Instagram as well, you can as well. So both those, but preferably Twitter if you've got it. And yeah, anything else? Last thoughts on the buys? Yeah, just get rid of those red dots. Get 18 at least playing and set yourself up for the next 3 weeks because this could be, especially a guy like myself who slid this week. I knew I was going to, so hopefully I can make those points up over the next 3 weeks by being smart with the buys. So hopefully that's what I do. Moonboy says, good on you, mate. See you Friday. Yep. So I'll see everyone on Friday for the weekend forecast back at 4 p.m. Australian Central Standard Time as I am every Friday. And then I'll be with the weekend report on the Sunday night straight after the final game. So we won't have as much to talk about next week. Only 6 games, but it'll be still a good one anyway. But again, huge thank you to Selby, coach of Moreira's Magic, 2-time fantasy champion, for jumping on tonight. Really do appreciate that and him jumping on, and I'm sure we'll speak to him at some other point in the future as well. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see everyone in the next one. I'm out. Cheers. Good luck this week.